It was very difficult for me to even mentally accept that that's what I'm doing.
Hi everyone, my name is Seerat Sindhu Batra and I'm back with another video which is an interview series for you. My friends, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel and share and like this video with your friends if you find this useful. Also, don't forget to follow me on my Instagram page MSB Vision and sign up for my free newsletter down below. Today, I will be interviewing my sister Seerat Sindhu, who is a BCom honors student from Delhi University's Jesus and Mary College. Post that, she worked in strategy for 4 years in Delhi, and after that, she did her MBA from Imperial College London. Now that she's almost done with her MBA, we want to ask her all questions related to how did she get into the right school, how did she make the most of her MBA experience, and what is it like working in strategy in India. Please welcome my sister Seerat Sindhu. Hi Seerat, welcome to the interview. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi Meher Didi, it's an absolute pleasure.
Seerat calls me Didi, yes, that's evident. But you don't have to call me Didi today, it's alright.
Okay, MSB.
So Seerat, as I was introducing you, I think you're at such a great junction of your career, and I think your story deserves to be shared with everybody. And I've got so many questions from our audience members that they want to learn more about your story. So are you excited to join us today here?
Yes, I'm super excited for this interview. It's fun.
So Seerat, today's interview I will divide into 3 parts. The first will be a little bit about your schooling in Delhi, along with getting into Delhi University, how your college experience was, as well as getting into the right company for placements, which will be the second part of this interview, a little bit about your work experience, getting internships, and actually going ahead and getting jobs in Delhi. And after that, the last part of today's interview will be about your MBA experience and going abroad to study MBA and how different it was from your college experience. I hope that sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds great, and I love the segmentation. So
Seerat, why don't you tell us a little bit about your school experience, how it was studying in one of the most competitive schools of India?
So as you all know, Meher Didi and I have been born and brought up in New Delhi, and we had the privilege of going to one of the most, I feel, recognized and competitive schools in India. So we both went to Delhi Public School RK Puram. I feel a lot of alumni from Delhi Public School RK Puram have contradicting emotions about the school. The school has many, mechanisms to perpetuate consistency in the academic year. As in, we had every Monday tests, so all my weekends were always ruined. We had, and any dip sites out there who are watching this video, I'm sure you will relate. There's this scholar badge system, so anybody who gets above 80% overall grade at the end of the year gets, like a little certificate and an award. And I think that really propelled me to get right above 80%, but not high enough to get into the 90s until I got into class 10th. I had the 10th boards, and I think that's when I started to get very academically
nerdy. She got nerdy.
I got nerdy, little nerdy. And then I feel that I don't know why I thought I could do science. I have so much respect for all 3 fields. In my school, there were 3 at that time. There was humanities, arts, commerce, and science. And I thought in 11th grade going in, let's try science. I mean, maybe I'm smart enough. Not that other streams are not smart, but maybe I have that inclination, that interest to do science. I tried it for 2 months. I did it. It didn't go well. And I immediately transferred to commerce subjects, which I really felt comfortable with.
What did you feel at that time? You did science for 2 months, and then taking a decision to switch streams is not an easy decision. What was going through your mind that, oh my God, I think this is not for me and I need to switch? Because I talk to a lot of science students and they feel the same thing, but they are scared to make that change.
So initially why I took science is because I did have a little bit of interest in it. And in the 9th and 10th, they had introduced sort of rudimentary chemistry and rudimentary biology. They had introduced entry-level concepts of chemistry and biology, and I thought, wow, that sounds interesting. And I had seen the subject list for all the 3 streams, and I couldn't relate to anything that was listed in humanities. I don't consider myself a very creative person. So, like psychology, history, fine arts, that wasn't really ringing a bell with me. And of course, like I said, science was initially, and so was commerce. I was interested in economics a lot. I was interested in accounting, business, of course. I didn't have a management subject in school. I did have business studies, but I didn't really know at that time what business studies really meant, really what it really was. I knew I had to get a really good grade in my 12th, and I knew I had to invest my time in 11th grade as well as 12th grade to have a strong academic background for my 12th boards. Because at that time we had discussions at home, I'm sure you remember, is that my undergraduation would be in India. So I was very dependent on my class 12 score and what my profile would sort of look like then academically. So it was all streams ahead, and I knew that I would not be able to perform as academically well in science because I didn't think it was my caliber. So I decided to switch to commerce 2-3 months into class 11th.
So it's really about self-reflecting and trying to understand whether this is for me or not, because that time period is so important to make the right decision for the rest of your career. At least like the next 5 to 10 years will be dictated by the stream you take in 11th grade. So I think that was a very bold move, and I would really suggest and recommend all students who are in a field that is not their top priority or not their top choice to really think about it before going ahead, blazing ahead in the stream which is maybe not ringing a bell for them.
Definitely, and it's not always taking what is the easier option, but it's also realizing what is your interest, but it's also what you are good at, right? What is the easier path might not be what you are best at. So sometimes it's okay to take a more challenging path where you feel you'll do well in it, you'll be successful in it. I honestly did not feel that in the few months that I was in science. So I decided to switch to commerce stream, and I'm so grateful that I did, because when I saw the list of subjects like business studies, I had only done very basic economics in 9th class and 10th class, and it was so interesting. I actually had a lot of fun in school because I was genuinely interested in what was being taught. And I'm so glad that I decided to eventually, make a career out of it.
Wonderful, great. And then let's say you took commerce. How was your experience with commerce? I know you were very involved in school with a lot of activities and you were a part of the clubs and societies. Why don't you give a little bit of tips to somebody who's in 11th and 12th, and how can they make the most of that time?
I feel around 10th grade, I knew I had to get serious, because if I wanted to get into a good school in Delhi University, I knew I needed 90% above. And every year the cutoffs were just going higher and higher. And yes, that did scare me a lot, that did intimidate me, but I really wanted to stay focused on my goal of getting into, let's say, the top 10 colleges within Delhi University, and I wanted to do BCom honors. No disrespect to people who don't want to do an honors course or whatever, but my interest was, I want to eventually get into the corporate world, and the best possible route to that was doing BCom honors from a good college within Delhi University, depending on where the companies come for placements. So, and I feel I was a little lucky because I had cousins and you around me who were older, who I could see their path and see what they did, and sort of learn from their own journeys, and not necessarily mistakes, but what they did right and what potentially they didn't do right. So I think I had that sort of guiding force. So I knew 10th grade onwards that I wanted to do BCom honors from DU. I knew I wasn't going to move anywhere. I wanted to do Delhi University, and I knew the cutoffs were going crazier and crazier. So that was the academic side, right? That I tried to be as consistent as possible. There were some good days, there were some not so, pretty good days. And I had tuitions every day because I was, like you said, involved in a lot of activities in school. I was in the student council. I'm a grade 8 drummer. In the instruments, I was in the girls band. So I was in a lot of extracurricular activities as well. So honestly, in school, it was also about hanging out with friends. So I was investing that time after school in tuitions. Every day I had tuitions, and I didn't change my tuition teachers between 11th and 12th. Whoever I got in 11th, I carried on till 12th grade, till my boards. And I think that was also one of the smartest decisions I made academically.
I feel that you started because you knew that, okay, I need to get into a good college, and for that 12th matters. That means I need to be disciplined from 11th so that can be carried on forward. That's why you started the tuitions. That's why you were very good at school. You got into the business studies club also, and then you were heading so many activities going on.
Yes.
Seerat was very busy at that time, and I think that's when you started to understand, okay, this is who I want to be and this is where I want to be. And it's good that you had that direction and that goal, and that's what motivated you, I'm guessing, to really excel at school.
Yeah. I feel I was I would actually say class 10th onwards I was very motivated to do well, and I saw the the fruit of my efforts. I did well in class 10th. I did do well in class 12th. But before the board results come, I also sat for so many entrances. I did the Amity, I did Christ, I did Symbiosis. So it was all sort of a waiting game until the cutoffs came out. I actually also went for ECA, which is the extracurricular activities quota across colleges in Delhi University. I got into LSR for statistics honors, and I got into JMC BCom honors before I even got my class 12th result.
Wow.
So I knew I was in. Yeah. That was because of drumming, because of drums, right? So, also you have to think about I started thinking very early on what makes my profile unique. To have a female, such a senior level drumming instrumentalist, especially for, all girls colleges, I knew I had sort of like a golden ticket. So that was my backup option if my BCom honors grade, if my class 12 boards results wouldn't do well. So that was my backup.
Great. So I think that would be your recommendation to everybody. Like, think about what is your unique selling point, and maybe or something that is of unique interest to you, and start building that early on. And also, of course, it's important to do well in 12th as well, right? Is that the recommendation?
Definitely, and I think that really helps identify what is the X factor that you bring to the university or the college wherever you are applying to. So yeah, that's absolutely right. I think I learned that at a young age.
Great. Okay, so then you got into JMC BCom honors, and how was that college life experience? It was probably very different from school.
College life was fun. I eventually went to Jesus and Mary College in Delhi University, so that's South Campus, and I did BCom honors there. I got in, and actually this is a bit of a funny story. I got in through the ECA quota and had to sign a bond, and I got 95% best of 4 in my in my 12th boards, and they had 3 seats free after 95.25. And when the cutoff dropped to 95, they converted my application from an ECA bonded, ECA quota student to a general admission student. Oh. So I actually didn't have to do the, the ECA component, which is mandated if you have gotten in through that quota. So that was a good, Whew. But college life was great. I had a blast. I made some really good friends. I explored Delhi a lot. I learned how to drive. That was a journey of its own. While BCom honors was great, I personally don't think I was being as academically challenged, and I don't think I was as busy as I was in school, especially because DPS RK Puram was so always focused on studies. So I really tried to use those 3 years that I had in undergrad in upskilling myself, doing some internships, and I feel that I was maybe one of the students in BCom honors in JMC who had the most number of internships during those 3 years.
Wow! So how many internships did you have in those 3 years?
I had 4 internships during that time. So every break I had, as well as 1 international study abroad program.
Wonderful. Could you tell us a little bit about what are the internships you did and how did you manage to get those internships?
So again, this is so many years ago now. At that time, there wasn't a very formalized system to apply for corporate, big brand internships. So I did have to use some connections. So I would find my dad's friend of a friend of a friend and ask him for an internship I asked someone I met at the mall once for an internship, and I actually got it. So I varied. I did policy consulting, an internship in policy consulting. I even did it at KPMG. I did it at HDFC Bank. So I think I had a very different, and I did it at a manufacturing firm. I think I had a very good mix of the type of, organizations. And I think this was very important because even though it didn't make me realize, this is what I want to do for the next 30, 40 years of my life, it helped me identify things I definitely don't want to do for the next, couple of years.
And that is so important. I keep telling my students that we all have this network of people who are in our lives, that colleagues, friend's colleague or cousin's friend who's working at these places, or dad or mom's connections. We should be exploiting them, because if we feel shy, we'll never know whether we can make the most of those opportunities. So it's actually about asking your chacha or mama or taya to actually, ask for a favor, and it's okay, because it's for your career, it's for your exposure, it's for your experience. So I think what you did was just exposing yourself to different ways of working, and I'm sure you were very young, 19, 20 years old, where you also don't know what's right, what's wrong, what are the different types of sectors or industries. You're just starting from scratch, so you just have to get experience, and sometimes that just starts with a phone call or asking somebody for a favor. And I think a lot of us hold ourselves back because we don't want to ask others for a favor, but your number one opportunities will come from your network. They say that 80 to 85% jobs are filled through networking, right? So there's no harm in asking somebody for help. So I'm really glad that you did that, and you exposed yourself as much as you could during those college years.
Yes, for sure. And yes, of course, it is very nervous, to walk up to some random auntie or uncle to ask them for an internship. But, what will they say maximum? They'll say no to you. There's no harm in asking and, like you said, putting yourself out there. So that's how I managed to get my internships, which was very interesting.
Wonderful. So you spoke a little bit about your study abroad program. Could you tell us what that was and how that experience went at such a young age?
Yes, for sure. So I still remember that was my last break between second year and third year. And I really wanted to study strategy, because I did not have a subject called strategy in throughout my BCom honors, 3 years. And I was very interested, and I had some, old family friends who were 10 years older than me, and Bain and McKinsey, and I was like, what do these people do? What is strategy? And I started Googling, literally that's how it started, Googling strategy courses for undergrads. And London School of Economics actually offers a short 3-week semester abroad, mini semester abroad in London on the campus, and I decided to apply for it, and I got it, and it was great. It was just, it sounds short, but I learned so much in those 3 months about just basics about 3 weeks. I learned so much in those 3 weeks, not just about, strategy, but also about myself. And I got so much international exposure that really, I think it was one of the best decisions I ever made. And this actually fits into my career quite later as well as we progress.
Actually, then let's talk a little bit about campus placements, because you got your first job through a campus placement. Could you give some tips to students who are in college right now? How can they build that profile, and how can they have the confidence to stand out from the crowd when there are 200 people interviewing for one position at this big company?
So the first few companies which came, KPMG, PwC, I didn't apply for them because I didn't want, those profiles didn't appeal to me. And then finally, Deloitte came with a role for transfer pricing executive. And I decided, this sounds unique. Let's see what this is, and let's apply for it. Yes. I remember we were around 250 females from my college who were applying for that job. They hired, I think, at the end 3 people from Jesus and Mary College. There were 3 rounds. The first was an aptitude test, which was basic math, logical reasoning. The second was a group discussion, and the third was 2 rounds of interviews. The first round was quite basic, so most people actually cleared that. The second round was group discussion. I still remember my topic was, they put a red ball in front of us and said, this is a yellow ball, discuss.
Oh wow.
So
it was actually a red ball.
It was a red ball, and you had to convince each other, ignoring the panel, that how this is a yellow ball.
What did you say then?
I just remember saying, look at the reflection, look at how it looks in the light. It's a yellow ball. It's I think it was sort of like KBC's fastest finger first, like whoever talks and most coherently, like most clearly.
So they were testing your communication skills and your ability to think fast on the spot.
Yes, right? Yes. And then when it came to the interview round, so there was a break. So when I knew I got into the interview round, it was the next day, and I just Googled what is transfer pricing. I memorized the definition from Investopedia, and I memorized the Deloitte as a company, their values.
that it's so important to do your research before every interview. So Seerat did research about the job description that she was interviewing for, as well as the research about the company, their values, their mission, a little bit maybe about the interviewer. Did you have any idea who will be interviewing you?
No, so I didn't know who would be interviewing me actually. I just knew that they would be from the transfer pricing team, and Deloitte actually had a page for their global services of transfer pricing. So I didn't really have information at an India level what they do. So I didn't know whether it was a client facing or it was back end. I didn't have much information, but I just tried to learn the basic kind of services that involve transfer pricing.
Great. Okay, so then you went into the interview, and how was it? Do you remember your first ever job interview?
So obviously my interview was really great. It was successful. They asked me, some basic questions about me, my upbringing, my schooling, and obviously about my internship, especially about my KPMG internship. And then they tested me about how well I knew Deloitte and how well I knew what transfer pricing was. And when I was able to give them a definition, I actually told them that I know what transfer pricing is because I told them a story, which is a true story, about what my mom's experience has been with transfer pricing, because she works for an international company. So she was able to give me some tips about what it is. And you were working at KPMG at that time, and you had also helped me about how transfer pricing is international taxation and so on and so forth.
So it's amazing. It's about reaching out to people who may have experience or exposure to that subject or to that industry, and gaining that information beforehand will really help you in an interview, right?
Yes.
So you did that practice before you went in for the interview, and I'm sure the interviewer thought, oh my god, this young girl who's like 20-21 has exposure to transfer pricing and she's talking about real life practical examples. She is the one we need to hire.
Yes, that's exactly how it happened. And I think I got the job successfully, and I think I got for that year, I got the second or maybe third highest package.
Great, that's wonderful. So then you worked at the Big Four for a little bit, and then you pivoted your career into strategy consulting, which we will talk about.
Yes.
But why did you end up quitting the Big Four after a while?
So the Big Four was great. I really did feel a part of a large global family. However, because I was in the tax department, I didn't think that I couldn't see long-term growth there if I didn't want to do finance or an accounting related course. So I knew it was sort of like a ticking time bomb.
Okay, great. And then how did you manage to make that little bit of pivot into the strategy consulting world?
So like I said, strategy was always something that interested me. And I was ready for a change, transition in my career, and I was thinking that maybe I should look into strategy because it is something that I find interesting. And I started to actually LinkedIn really helped me. I got my next job through LinkedIn. I started reaching out. I really made my LinkedIn profile as strong as I could at that time with the sort of limited experience I had professionally, and I started sending LinkedIn messages to boutique strategy consulting firms, their partners, their managers on LinkedIn. I started doing like a cold outreach and a semi-warm outreach on LinkedIn.
That's amazing. So, it's about actually using the tools, the free tools that we have available.
Yes.
And not being shy from sending that message. So, you'd worked at the big companies, and now you thought that, okay, let me try something different, and I want to try a new field, which is strategy.
Yes.
And let me maybe experiment at a smaller organization than going for a larger one, right? Is that the thought that was going through?
That was exactly the thought that I was going for. I also knew that because I'm not, I'm transitioning and not directly going into an MBB from undergrad. I knew that my chances of getting a job at a more boutique-ish consulting firm would be
more likely.
If I wanted to experiment in that field.
And I think that's very important. A lot of us think that, oh my God, I worked at a big company, I deserve a job at another big company. But sometimes when you're making a career transition, a career switch, it's important to maybe start small, build that experience, build that base, and then apply to the big fish, right?
Definitely, for sure. And I also feel that maybe the learning and the personalized attention you get in a project and the responsibilities you get are higher when you're in a smaller firm. And I'm only saying that in comparison to the kind of role and responsibilities I had at Deloitte versus what I had at the boutique consulting firm that I worked for.
Amazing. So you started sending out these messages, and then what happened?
So I started sending out the messages. Most of the people did respond to me, if not immediately, then in a few days. A few of those turned into conversations, and eventually one converted into an internship.
Oh, wow. So you started interning then at a small company in strategy.
Yes, which was actually a little difficult because, I went from being a full salaried person to completely transitioning and then going on an internship salary. So that's a stipend, right? So it was very difficult for me to even mentally accept that that's what I'm doing. But yeah, I just decided to go for it. And actually within 3 weeks, my internship was actually 8 weeks long, and within 3 weeks I had been converted into a full-time resource.
Amazing. That's about it. That's about taking a little bit of risk when you are wanting to get into the field of your choice. And I think sometimes we just want that same pay grade, and it's not possible. You have to start small. You have to start from scratch, and that's what you did, which is amazing.
Yes, I also started from scratch in terms of the position I had. I started from an associate consultant year 1 level.
Even though you had experience?
Even though I had professional experience.
Yeah.
And that is sort of, that is something I had to accept because I wanted to go into the field of my choice.
Wonderful. So then you started working at this small boutique strategy consulting firm. Firstly, let's talk a little bit about what exactly is strategy consulting and how was your experience in strategy consulting and what did you learn at that time?
My experience in strategy consulting was great. I think it gave me exposure into so many different industries and the kind of challenges they face.
So that's what strategy consulting is basically.
So strategy consulting means that I was a consultant, also like another word for it. And another word for it also would be an advisor to mostly international companies who needed some guidance on their business operations in India. So that was the kind of consulting job that I was doing. It's mostly companies who, whether they have a product ready and they want to do a route to market, or they want to enter the India market and they need help maybe acquiring someone, or what city should they launch their product in. So that's sort of what I did in those 3-4 years that I was working in the boutique strategy consulting.
Amazing. So it sounds a lot like market strategy, growth strategy, product strategy. Is that what it is? I
actually like to call it India strategy because I feel I helped in everything.
Wow.
And my experience was mostly concentrated in the F&B and FMCG sectors.
Wonderful, wonderful. So yes, you had a lot of exposure to different types of industries, different types of sectors, different clients and stakeholders in those years. So I'm guessing you really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think it gave me a lot of exposure in several different industries. I got to work with some great clients and I got to travel also across India. And yeah, I think it was actually some of the best years of my life.
And then what happened? You worked in strategy consulting for a few years.
Yes.
What was the next big move that you wanted to make?
So I knew the next big move I wanted to make is that I wanted to do my MBA. And I knew that was the right age for me. I feel I had reached that level in consulting positions, and to become a manager, I really needed to have specific management and leadership skills, which in the experience that I'd had so far, I hadn't been able to get a lot of exposure in those kind of, subjects and those kind of subjects.
Okay.
So I knew I had to upskill myself.
And that's another reason to do an MBA is that you enjoy where you're working or you enjoy the work that you're doing, your career path, but you just want to accelerate and get those leadership skills, those managerial skills, and just upskill yourself, as you said.
Yes.
And that's why you need to expose yourself to another degree that may be a master's in business management, or it could be a master's in something else, which is what you went for, which was master's in business administration. How did you decide where you wanted to apply, and how was that whole application process for an MBA?
Okay, so I was very meticulous in my search because I'm a strategy consultant, so Excel is my life. Mm-hmm. I had an MBA tracker. I knew I wanted to go to an English-speaking country, so that also helped me shortlist some schools. I had an Excel tracker with the name of the business school, what are the admission requirements, and of course, most importantly, what was the fees. The financial quotient of the MBA cannot be ignored. So that also played, important big role in deciding where I'll apply and in what priority I'll apply to the business schools. I worked very hard on my GMAT score. As much as time I could devote to it with a full-time job, and I worked very hard on my essays, and and then I decided to go for the MBA, and then the pandemic hit, and all my plans went down the drain.
And then what happened? You applied to Imperial College, you got an admit, and then what happened?
So I got an admission, but then the pandemic hit, so unfortunately I had to cancel my admission at Imperial College. And
this is 2020.
I still remember I got the acceptance letter on my birthday on 2nd March 2020. And then around 15 July, less than 6 weeks before the program was supposed to start, there was so much uncertainty with the pandemic. There were no classes happening online. And of course, there's a health concern as well. I decided to, contact Imperial College and cancel my admission for the year of September 2020. And I decided to go back into the workforce.
Wow, that must have been a very challenging time, when you've got the school of your dreams and you can't really go because of external circumstances. And that happens, life happens with all of us. And sometimes, we just have to accept it, and not as a failure, but just mishaps sometimes happen, right?
That's exactly why it's always important to have a plan A, B, C, D, E. And in my case, I think my plan E worked out for the first year of the pandemic.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wow. And then what happened? So you almost got through the dream school of your choice. And
then went 2 steps back.
Went 2 steps back, and now you've already quit your job. So you're like, okay, what do I do now?
Yes.
And then what happened?
And then my best friend, LinkedIn. I went back to LinkedIn and started looking for jobs. But this time I was feeling a little exhausted after all the, admissions processes and stuff. So I took the lazy route of doing only LinkedIn easy in applications. So I had a ready CV that I had used for my business school applications, and I would just tailor it depending on the company that I was applying to. And I knew I wanted to do strategy, but I thought, maybe let's try a startup this time. So I started to apply for startups or like corporate strategy roles in boutique Indian companies. And LinkedIn Easy, every day I sent out maybe like 30 applications. And Naukri.com as well.
Wow, 30 applications on LinkedIn and Naukri.com. But what you said, which was important, is tailoring your CV for each application and not just copy pasting the same one. Right?
Yes, and honestly, that tailoring I didn't rewrite my CV per role. It would just be 3-4 words.
Yeah.
And as I started applying, I also saw a pattern that if I'm applying to tech type startups, these are the 4-5 buzzwords that they have. And if I'm applying to an F&B type startup, they have these 5, 6, 7 buzzwords. So I had like 4 different types of CVs that I was using by the end of it. I wasn't tailoring it every application, but for every industry, for every or segment of the market, I was tailoring my CV.
It's important to find those keywords that will make the recruiter or the hiring manager be like, okay, they have all the things that we are looking for.
Yes.
And that's why it's important to customize and use multiple versions of your CV.
Yes, definitely.
Wonderful. And then you managed to get another job?
Yes, I had a few calls back and forth with some companies, and then I joined a SaaS company as their head of strategy.
Wow.
And I remember when I was applying for this job, I thought, wow, it must be great, because they had 7 stages to the whole process.
7 rounds of interviews?
So some were like tests, like there was another aptitude test, there was a case study, there was a presentation making. Wow. So there were 3 rounds like that, and 4 were interviews, yes.
Oh my God. So they tested all aspects of your profile.
Yes. I was super patient, and I also had a lot of time because it was the pandemic and I was just watching Netflix. So it was a good... I was project managing my own hiring, so that was...
And I always say this, finding a job is a full-time job, right? Like it's almost like you have to be so diligent, talking to people, applying for these positions and all of that. So I'm sure it was a difficult time. Yeah. And then you got the job, and what happened about the MBA plan when you started working in strategy and you also wanted to do an MBA at the back of your mind?
Yeah. So I started the new job, and I'm having back and forth with Imperial because they still had my security deposit, and I hadn't managed to get a confirmed seat for the next year. And sometimes life just works out. They asked me about how I've used that 1 year where I didn't go for the MBA. I showed them that I got back into the workforce. I was upskilling myself, and I had taken on some small certification courses during my free time in the pandemic, and I was able to convince them to give me to secure my seat for next year instead of giving me a refund of the security deposit.
That's amazing, and that's what you're showing them, that you were not sitting idle and you were diligently working well on your application, making sure you're a good candidate even for the next year's batch.
Yes,
wonderful,
definitely.
Wonderful, great. So then let's fast forward, and you come to London for your MBA at Imperial College. How was that whole experience of leaving home for the first time to study internationally for 1 year, all on your own, independently? How was that experience?
It was great. I think I had the best year of my life. Imperial is a great school. What a great community. Imperial College is mostly known as, a school for the sciences. So the business school is very very new, and it's very energetic and very tech oriented, and it's a big community that you're getting a part of. So I thought it was a great year. Wonderful. Academically, professionally, personal development. It has to be the best year of my life.
Wonderful. Yeah, also living independently, taking care of yourself,
yes,
cooking for yourself and all those
I
things.
know, I had so much fun cooking for you also.
Yeah, we had some great times together. I think
yes,
it was great that we were also in the same city. We got to spend a lot of time together
yes,
this 1 year. Great. So tell us a little bit about, how studying in the UK or maybe outside of India is different from studying in India. Like, what was the difference you saw in studying at Delhi University and now studying at a business school, one of the top business schools of the world?
So I think the first difference that I saw was the structure of the course. It was because the MBA, which is the Masters in Business Administration, my class had people from diverse backgrounds. So it was a little basic entry level at the beginning for every subject, and then it would go super high. So yeah, the intensity of the subjects grew exponentially. And also I loved how the focus was, on practical applications of what I'm actually learning rather than just theoretical. I feel and I don't mean this as criticism, but I don't think I got a lot of use out of, the rote learning mechanism that I had developed, during my undergrad studies. So this was a very interesting change.
Wonderful. And when you say practical application of the knowledge that you were gaining, what do you mean by that? How are you applying your knowledge practically? If you could give some examples.
So I think there was a lot of exposure in terms of having so many group projects. Everybody's working on a solution together. There were so many case study based subjects that we were learning from real life company examples and their stories. And also the format of the program is that you get to intern and work with another company. I worked with one of UK's largest telecommunication companies for one of my mini projects, where I actually got to implement some of the teachings that I had learned from the MBA, particularly in subjects from business problem solving and organization behavior and ethics.
Wonderful, that's great. And let's talk a little bit about living in London, because everybody knows how expensive it is to live here, right?
Yes.
How did you manage your expenses as a student? And if there are some tips you could give to incoming students right now on how they can manage their finances better, because everybody's on a budget. How does one do that?
Okay. So I was very transparent with myself, and I had a monthly budget and an Excel that I maintained, and I tried to split by how much money I have to spend in a day. I think that really helped me, because the days I spent less, I was able to spend more on the weekend, and so I really tried to control, especially during the weekdays. In the first 1 month, everybody is tempted of eating in the school cafeteria. While it is subsidized, it is still expensive. So I learned to cook a lot, which I never cooked on a daily basis in India. So for me, Sundays and Mondays were reserved to cooking, large meals that I would eat in the next few days. Public transportation in London is so great. I rarely used, taxis. So I think those are some tips and tricks. And I was shameless in asking for student discount. Everywhere I went, whether it's a restaurant or a shop, do you do student discount? And usually they do. So that's the best.
Yeah, so that's great. I think it's about being a little smart, like you said, coming up with a daily budget and then sticking to it and using like meal prepping and using the discounts, like Uni Days is one of the apps that you used to use. So really being active on just not being shy to ask for a discount.
And there's no harm in asking for student discounts. I asked for student discounts everywhere. There were 2 apps that I used, Uni Days and Student Beans, and all the popular restaurants and shops were always listed on it. So I always got 15, 20, sometimes even 40% off. So that was great.
Let's backtrack a little bit and talk about the MBA application process. How did you make sure that your profile was selected at least for an interview by the university?
Yeah. So again, like we discussed earlier, you always have to bring about how are you a good match for the school. So some things that all schools tell you about is, what is the age that they're looking for, what is the average work ex. So there are certain barriers within which you have to apply to the kind of schools. In terms of Imperial, which was my dream school because you had gone and you had such a great experience at Imperial. So I knew I wanted to apply there. And I remember I tailored my essay each essay, there were 4 essay questions and a statement of purpose to everything that I knew that the school was looking for. I went on their their ethos and values, what kind of students they're looking for, what are the profiles. I LinkedIn searched their recent alumni. I approached alumni of even 2-3 years ago. 2-3 years ago to see how can I make my profile relevant and important for Imperial to have. So I think those are some important extra steps that one must take to make the application different
and stronger.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Great. Okay, so then now that you're at the end of your MBA and you said it was a great experience, what is the next step? Which field do you want to get into, and are you planning to stay back in the UK or are you going back to India?
So I am going back to India. I do want to stay in the F&B and FMCG space, and I think India is a very exciting market for this industry right now. There's so many new things happening, so many new products, so many new players, and yeah, I'm so excited to re-enter that market.
Strategy?
I re-enter that market in strategy, business development, growth strategy.
Great, wonderful, Seerat. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. I think this will be useful for everybody who is confused about their career paths and also want to get into the world of strategy. Great talking to you today. And one final advice to anybody who's about 20 or 19 watching this today.
Work hard today so you don't have to work as hard tomorrow.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Great. So find Seerat on Instagram and also in India very soon, because she's moving back and you will see her in the corporate world very, very soon, right?
Yes. Okay. Coming soon to you in 2023, back into the job force.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Seerat.
Thank you.
Bye.